So how do you solve a murder when there's no body? In this particular case, the answer isn't in a confession, and it's not even in finding a weapon. Now, it's in a trail of digital clues and some really disturbing actions that, when you put them all together, paint an incredibly detailed picture of a woman's final, terrifying hours. And this is the chilling prediction that Suzanne Simpson herself made to her banker. It was a warning, something she said in confidence, that would soon become the haunting focus of a desperate search for a woman who really seemed to have it all. I mean, Suzanne Simpson was a pillar of her community. She was a marathon runner, a top realtor, a devoted mom, but after attending a private party, she just vanished. All that was left were screams in the dark and a husband whose story would start to unravel almost immediately. Okay, so to really understand what happened here, we have to pull back the curtain on Suzanne's seemingly perfect life, because what was going on behind the scenes was a very different and much, much darker reality. Publicly, Suzanne was this shining success story, right? But privately, she felt completely trapped. She told her banker that her husband Brad was physically abusive and was constantly tracking her phone. She was even secretly making a plan to move in with her mother and finally escape, a plan she would tragically never get to execute. Now we're going to reconstruct her final hours with some really terrifying precision. And it's the digital breadcrumbs she left behind that are absolutely critical to understanding what went down that night. Okay, look at the timing here. It is so precise. At exactly 9:16 p.m., as Suzanne is on the phone with her mother, telling her she's just been assaulted, her husband Brad is, at that very same moment, on their AT&T account, cutting off her line of communication. It's just unbelievable. An hour later, a neighbor sees her literally fighting for her life before hearing screams from the woods. And those were the last sounds anyone ever heard from Suzanne Simpson. So, with Suzanne gone, the focus shifts entirely to her husband, Brad. And let me tell you, his actions in the next 24 hours do not paint a picture of a worried spouse. Not at all. It looks like a man engaged in a calculated, methodical cleanup operation. Investigators believe this whole sequence of events was a meticulous effort to get rid of evidence. I mean, from the school drop-off with mysterious bags, to being seen at a drive-thru with a large tarp-wrapped object in his truck, to a visit near the county dump, and then a super thorough truck cleaning. And get this, he only reported her missing nearly 24 hours later, and only because a friend basically forced his hand. This Home Depot receipt, it became an absolute cornerstone of the investigation. Cement, heavy-duty trash bags, disinfectant spray. I mean, you buy these items together, and they're pretty much synonymous with concealing a body and cleaning up a crime scene. And the fact that he paid with cash, which was totally out of character for him, suggested he really wanted to avoid leaving a paper trail. So now prosecutors are facing the ultimate challenge, right? They have to build a murder case without a body. And to do it, they started assembling this mountain of circumstantial evidence. The prosecution's case is really like a mosaic of different kinds of evidence. They had the neighbor's eyewitness account, that digital trail from cameras and phone data, and even Brad's own written apologies for past assaults found on his phone. But the real cornerstone was a major forensic breakthrough. They found Suzanne's DNA on a reciprocating saw that Brad had tried to hide. And then there's this text message. It is just a damning piece of evidence. He sent it to an associate, and it reveals a clear conspiracy to hide weapons and other items just 2 days after Suzanne disappeared. It just screams consciousness of guilt and shows an active attempt to obstruct the investigation. The charges themselves reveal the prosecution's entire theory of the crime. This wasn't just murder. It was an elaborate cover-up. And that specific charge, tampering with evidence with intent to impair a human corpse, well, that points directly to their belief that Brad dismembered Suzanne's body to prevent it from ever being discovered. So, all of this brings us to the final phase of this story, the slow, really arduous path to justice, and the one question that still hangs over this entire community. $5 million. That is a staggering number. And it shows you just how seriously the court is taking the evidence presented by the state. It's a huge signal of the perceived danger and flight risk they believed Brad posed. Now, the legal fight has been intense. The defense argued that, hey, without a body, you can't prove how someone died, which makes the murder charge too vague. But the prosecution fired back, and the judge agreed that the law doesn't reward criminals who are just really good at hiding a body. So the trial was cleared to move forward. Perhaps the most powerful statements in this entire case didn't come from lawyers or investigators, but from Suzanne's own children. Her eldest daughter, Chandler, went on social media and directly accused her father, giving her mother the voice that she no longer had. And in a final twist, the very thing that helped build this case in the first place, that digital trail, well, it just keeps growing. The trial actually had to be delayed after the prosecution received several more terabytes of data, pushing the final verdict and any real sense of closure even further into the future.
Ultimately, this case asks all of us to consider a really fundamental question of modern justice. In a world where our movements, our purchases, and our communications leave this indelible digital echo, can that echo be loud enough to prove murder beyond a reasonable doubt, even when the victim is never, ever found?